by FEMA and the Ad Council.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here.
We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the very many different social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Whichever place is, well, the easiest, most accessible, works the best for you is the right place to be, as we get into a lot of stuff here as we do on Friday. Already chiming in, Ida Beza Gardner over on the social media, also dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate James Holmes, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Ida Beza Gardner. Of course, because the reason we're already mentioning these here, before we even talk about all the different ways you can tune in for us, is because Friday is a very important day in our calendar anyway, happening each and every week, meaning that we are getting into all the stuff that we couldn't. I mean, a lot of stuff that we already did, don't get me wrong. I've got some surprising updates coming out today so far that we will be getting into, but this is that day of the week when we take it all on. We get into the nitty-gritty, we get into the details, and we take on all your comments and calls throughout both hours of the program. Free for All Friday is what we call it. So however you're tuned in, it means that we're going to be getting for you as much as we can cram into 2 hours of the program here. It's never quite enough, but we do our level best to get all of it, as we as Austin Redfear also commenting over on the social media. Do appreciate it. And Flaco Jimenez also dropping that like. George Zavala as well. Good afternoon to you as well. And one of the ones that I wanted to get to here is that I'm not sure I could be scripting this out. I'm not going to say better, but more interestingly, maybe the twists and turns that have been going on with criminal prosecution and specifically the August 3rd case in this area. I'm not talking about the facts of the case on its own, but rather all of the details swirling around it, particularly about what will be happening with, again, the prosecution in that case, the handling of the actual trial itself, and given all the things that have been going on with the district attorney's office, and very specifically the current district attorney, Yvonne Rosales, that there have been some questions about that, including being raised statewide about, okay, all the controversy surrounding the office at the moment. What will that mean for the actual trial moving forward? And I mean, of course, the election and the standing down from it of the previous district attorney comes to mind as, okay, what may have happened there. But there's a serious, and this is why this is like a twist that you'd be hard pressed to write in believably, honestly. But there has actually been, well, just to read the headline from our news partners there at KFOX 14, Biden nominates former El Paso DA Jaime Esparza for a U.S. attorney position. Now, you may think, okay, the guy who otherwise retired, maybe looking to get back into it, but it's more than just that, of course, besides his, 28-year tenure as El Paso's district attorney. The fact that he would be being appointed to, if, confirmed and all of those things, for the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Texas means that he would be possibly prosecuted by the former district attorney for El Paso in the federal case. So, yeah, that's a wrinkle and a twist that I didn't particularly expect. And whether or not, this is not by any means guaranteed. Again, this is a nomination. There's a process to go through. And even if Jaime Esparza would return to a prosecutorial position, I guess the best way to describe it, covering this region, it's still not totally sure or clear if that would actually be a part of the case here. Ultimately, according to our news partners at KFOX 14, the decision falls to senior Justice Department officials, generally based on the recommendations from the U.S. Attorney. So that's just one of those, wait, what kind of news stories that makes you think, and why I got to bring it up even on a Friday like this here. But of course, we'll be still getting into all the stuff that we do on a day like this, and getting to all of it here. More of the comments coming in, of course, and the phone number again, one more time, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Let's just jump right into it. And we do have Ben on the east side on the phone with us here right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, befuddled Ben here. Thank you, Andrew. I thought it was very interesting about what Tulsi Gabbard did this week. And I'd like for maybe Raul and Lucia Franklin and all the other Democrats that are listening, if they haven't already heard this, maybe they should. She said, I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party that is now under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers driven by cowardly wokeness who divide us by racializing every issue and stoke anti-white racism, actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms, are hostile to people of faith and spirituality, demonize the police and protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding citizens, believe in open borders, weaponize the national security state to go after political opponents, and above all, dragging us ever closer to nuclear war. She said the administration does not care about the American people. Permanent Washington loots us to serve the interests of the arms manufacturing global oligarchy, while we struggle to pay for gas, food, rent, and our soldiers go on food stamps. She says she believes in a government that is of, by, and for the people. But unfortunately, today's Democratic Party does not. Instead, it stands for a government of, by, and for the powerful elite. And therefore, she was calling on all my fellow common sense, independent-minded Democrats to join me in leaving the Democratic Party. If you can no longer stomach the direction that so-called woke Democratic Party ideologues are taking our country, I invite you to join me. I'm sure that Raul and Lucia Frankie and a lot of other Democrats will be calling in. I'd like to hear what they say about her. I believe that she's a true patriot. And I'm not all, I think that the Republican Party has a lot to answer for also. But she puts the Democratic Party pretty well what it stands for right there. What do you think?
I mean, we talked a little bit about this earlier in the week, and of course, more response has been coming out of it, and at least one comment coming in over on the social media related to this that I'll get to here in a second. But let me just say something that's particularly from my days in TV. Of course, we still have ratings on this program and things like that, but we get a little bit more in depth in that kind of arena, doing market analysis, those kind of things. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is when it comes to preference, when people are choosing something. Of course, in this case, we were just talking about, the choice of outlet that they tune into, but it has an application here that comes to mind in that people don't generally switch from one thing to another directly. Anyway, they tend to go into a indecisive state or I don't really like anything more than the other right now. So they don't go directly from, in this case being talked about, Democrat to Republican or any direction therein, but they will tend to go to I am not sure who I like or who I don't like. Maybe not a lack of certainty, but maybe more of I don't really like anyone. I have no preference at this point in mind and in time. And then they will tend to gravitate towards a new one. Those are just some of the trends that have been analyzed and that I've been able to study in the past. So it's interesting the way this is being put, because, of course, there's been previous national campaigns about, walk away or, come to the other side kind of campaigns have been put out there. So as some are calling this part of a campaign to get people to switch party affiliation, if it were truly a part of that, and I'm not saying it is, that this would be maybe, at least from my knowledge, experience, and what I've been able to study, maybe more effective in that light, again, intended or not, because, again, people in general, there's always going to be outliers and people who are willing to, what's the old joke, go to sleep one day a Democrat, awaken the next as a Republican. I've seen that in cartoons for years. sure, there's going to be someone out there that may claim that, but in general, and in aggregate speaking about large populations, that tends to be how it works, is gradual and shifts over time, and shifting to no preference until a new preference is decided.
One other thing that Tulsi said, and she's a Hindu by her religion. She says any political party that is trying to erase the presence of God from every facet of public life and is hostile towards those who choose to worship God cannot be trusted to protect our inalienable God-given rights enshrined in the Constitution, and therefore should not be in power.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you think about that?
I mean, saying that people, you can disagree with someone sincerely held belief.
I mean, the Democrats actually wanted to take God out of their Democratic Party and everything when they hadn't had their nomination. I can't remember whatever it's called. Anyway, they took God out of their Democratic Party. So they actually did that. Isn't there something wrong with that?
The way in general, I guess I look at it, if you're asking for my personal preference or idea on that point, is that if you're going to make it available for someone, it has to be available for everyone. So I can kind of get it to the point of idea where if it's freedom for me, but not for thee, I guess I start having issue with it in that way, because the way you want to talk about historical founding of the United States was freedom for anyone to practice their religion. And if it's then assumed that one will dominate, that's kind of why I go into you care for what you wish for. If you want more freedom in one way, but only of the way you expect it to be, you're probably going to be cruising for a bruise, and when you impact reality with what your ideals are. So, I have no issue with anyone having sincerely held beliefs about what they believe to be true. It's once they start saying, and therefore you have to do the same thing, that I start having the issue with them.
Yeah, freedom from not believing in God if they want to.
Yeah.
But people who are in charge of our country, who was founded under God's principles, our Constitution enshrined in God, in the inalienable rights that God gave us, they shouldn't be in power. Those people, yes, they can have all the say and they want to, but if we start actually turning our backs on God, what's going to happen to our country?
Well, I think people need to be very aware and paying attention to that here. But in the total circumstance of Tulsi Gabbard, I'm sure this will be in a news cycle or two here, whether or not it has any staying power or this truly sparks a trend, so to speak. I guess we'll have to keep our eye on that.
I just applaud her courage and also her patriotism. And one more thing, let's go, Brandon.
Well,
have a good weekend. Stay safe, stay well. God bless.
You too as well. Thanks for the point in the call. Have a good one there. Tell you what, let's go ahead and hit that next break right now. Coming out of this break, already getting into it as we do at the start of this week. We'll be getting to more of those calls, more of those comments, more of everything we do at this point during the program. So if you want to get on the line, that number to call is, of course, 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. Comments coming up as well. Don't worry, I've been ignoring those. Just we'll get more into that here. So back after this break, you're on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
An accident's blocking the left lane on I-10 eastbound at the 54 Patriot. Expect delays from that. I-10 westbound is slow between Hawkins and the 54 Patriot. It's a 15-minute delay with mostly bumper-to-bumper traffic. I-10 eastbound at Reynolds on-ramp, there's an injury accident and a crash with injuries. I-10 eastbound at Zaragoza. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
News Radio 690 KTSM and Scott Heating and Cooling want to provide a local veteran with a heating and cooling system upgrade. Tell us about a deserving veteran you know who would benefit from a free new refrigerated AC unit. Who are they? How have they positively impacted you, their families, and the community? Nominate a veteran you know today at ktsmradio.com.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
While the Soviet blockade of Western Germany was anything but pleasant, One man known as the Candy Bomber found a way to bring joy to children under communist rule. Be sure to catch this story on the next Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi guys, it's Andrew with Northbrook Medical Clinic. Are you struggling with erectile dysfunction and sick of the pills? Well, we now have a major medical breakthrough you are going to want to hear about. The wave technology at Northbrook Medical uses gentle pressure waves to repair and open up blood vessels. There are 60 clinical studies, including from Cambridge, showing our technology treats the root cause problem of ED without any pills. If you're ready to put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and regain your love life, grab your phone and call us now. You'll qualify for the assessment, the exam, even the blood flow ultrasound, if you can believe it, totally free. And to the first 10 callers now, you'll get a gift that can produce powerful and rapid results in the bedroom. You're going to love that, trust me, guys. This is a $650 value free to callers now. 915-529-9000. That's 915-529-9000. Guys, put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and get your love life back. Call Northbrook Medical Clinic now to qualify. 915-529-9000.
You want to be a showstopper like The Miz? You want to be awesome? Then you'll want to have a game plan. Whether you're a champion or a bettor, you got to be responsible. The DraftKings Sportsbook offers all the tools you need. You can set a realistic budget and bet within your means. You can set time, deposit, and wager limits so you can have a personal game plan for having fun while being responsible. I practice safe bets, and so should you. Visit DraftKings.com/responsible-gaming to learn about all these tools and more.
Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/responsible gaming for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources.
Developed and used by cultures in forested areas, drums served as an early form of communication. Due to the highly ambiguous nature of these rhythms, misinterpretations often occur, resulting in violence. Thankfully, when we bang the drum now, we're a bit more civilized.
Can you hear me now?
A bit.
We have to hit them hard for this.
Beat out your frustrations on our drum.
Do not stop banging that drum.
News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. And just the comments going fast and furious, hard and heavy already there. I mean, there's a reason we sometimes refer to it as the Thunderdome of comments, and definitely seems to be forming there today. Don't worry, everyone should be able to leave, as opposed to the 2 enter, 1 leaves. But, well, your mileage may vary. I'm not encouraging violence against anyone here, but just know if you're bringing up a point, you best be ready to actually defend it and support it. In any case, call is coming in on the line as well. If you're wanting to chime in that way, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And a lot of points we'll be delving into today. And who knows? Free for all Friday. Yeah, we mean that in all the senses of the world that it comes in. And yeah, oh, geez. Just some of the comments, including Eric McNabb, Richard Janicki, Barbara Carrasco, Ion Graham, Austin Redfern, Kathy Codry, Calvin Williams, Maria Coleman, and John Brazelton. Is anyone else here? Probably. George Zavala, Ida Beza Gardner a little bit earlier. So, yeah, if you want to wade into there, go right ahead. But at least one of the points here coming out of the thing we talked about from the last segment here, of course, Calvin Williams saying we are founded on fundamental rights, not purely Christian beliefs. I mean, I would say that, of course, the Judeo-Christian ethic is very much present within a lot of what came into our country, but at least by my reading of what and how this country was founded is that, sure, a lot of different colonies had a lot of different, well, foundings, mostly and majorly from the, not exactly Catholic or any particular denomination, but a lot of different denominations, Protestant and whatnot, and that has been prevalence in its own right, in its own history. But the founding fathers did something very intelligent when they came together, realizing that if we were going to want to avoid situations coming out of, say, the English Civil War, where that was, I know it's not thought about much, Christian against Christian, seeing which version of it would be dominant, if they wanted to avoid that and the other entrapments of history from the old world, that they should make it so that there is, freedom of religion, but for any. And of course, the ability to choose how you decide to worship. And so anything that is saying like, well, you got to do it this way, that's just literally reductive thinking. So I tend to agree with that sentiment because, yes, definitely was baked into it, but they also realized that they have to make it permissive. That basically, there's a reason, as much as it has become politicized its own way, the idea of don't tread on me, more modern way to put it would be don't start none, won't be none. There's other words I could use there, but that's the way I'll change it for radio. So let's go back to those phone lines again. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Do have Andrew on the west side with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much, Andrew. I guess you've noticed recently in the news that the inflation rate increased from last month.
Yep, that's been swirling around kind of in the background at this moment, but yes, that has been coming up.
Yeah.
Of warned that maybe not exactly the gas station you're talking about, but one of the ones nearby, that there was like not even too far away from about $3 a gallon recently, within the last month, and then practically overnight it jumped to like $3.50 again. So yeah, the flux has been heartburn inducing.
Yes, sir. I'm talking about the one right there on Mesa and Brentwood.
So yeah, that one's been. I try not to look at it too hard because it makes me sad. But yes, I understand what you're saying there.
Yes. Well, I'm just wondering how long is this going to continue? Like I've said before, salaries and wages are not going up. If you go to the grocery store, like I did this morning,
yeah.
5 dozen eggs that come in a box, which is $60, went up from last week, which was $10 to now $18.
Oof, yeah. And of course, there's a couple of specific things that can be looked at. Of course, the declining of OPEC to increase their production and even further scaling back. Some of the times we've seen them make the decision in order to produce more was essentially to recapture market share, to be more of the bulk amount of dollars, even if they would be making more money per unit otherwise pricing. They're not endorsing that line of thinking at this moment, and makes me wonder if there have been some deeper deals going on with, say, Moscow involved in this, because it's often forgotten that as much as pipelines have been discussed with Russia and their influence, they are still a major petroleum producing country, not exactly part of OPEC, but not exactly unaligned with their possible ideals there. So whether there's more backroom dealing that this could be evidence of more actual alliances going on, that's maybe a little bit out of my depth, though it has been speculated upon. But of course, with all of the things, what was it? I know that there have been previous times where over the course of one speech that the stock market sell-offs and interest rate increases can be seen definitively. I think that happened slightly more recently with one of the the Fed actual speeches going on here. Was if people were actually watching the market were watching some not exact U-turns, but definite shifts in conditions.
Yes, I believe so. But anyway, it costs a lot less to produce oil here in the United States than to go begging these people who dislike the United States, and then it costs more money to ship it over here also. So, but the problem is that this administration and its domestic oil production, their energy policy, Biden is listening to these individuals, these the Green New Deal extremists, and they're influencing his energy policy, just like there's people influencing his immigration policy, and therefore that policy is therefore transferring to Homeland Security.
I will say this, that at the very least, a lot of the more common drilling that has happened, I remember reading about this as a kid, and before it was really being prevalent. I read a lot as a kid, no, I guess surprise to a lot of people, but I remember reading about this prevalence of oil shale sands, or oil shale, oil sands are another thing, but specifically that there was wide swaths of it here, but it's difficult. It's hard to get to. It's not the whole analogy of a pool of oil that you just dip the pipe into isn't really how it works, even in those that have those kind of quote unquote liquid reserves. But the fact of that matter is that there have, of course, has been technology advent much as there may be issues with things such as fracking or hydraulic fracturing, that it still is viable here in the U.S., but it is only really at a certain price point of which we have now begun to reach. Now, of course, there were some of those estimates when I was reading this as a kid of it having to be like strip mined, and hydraulic fracturing has gotten somewhat around that. It is still markedly more expensive percentage-wise than it is other extraction methods. So I'm not going to say I agree with you on that. It is cheaper overall to extract it. I mean, the ones that have those liquid reserves, it's still cheaper to extract it. But with the prices where they are and that's why it kind of seems, even without any of these foreign cartel decisions being made, the prices seem kind of sticky ever since kind of this last. Of course, there was the dip down during the Trump administration, but otherwise, even during that time, it was kind of a bit higher, because that's also what it takes to keep the supply going, is when the oil price reaches those, over $2 and $3 and so on, to allow for that kind of, it's part of the decision that is made by the individual companies, whether they're going to actually go after and pursue these wells, because it is more expensive. It takes a lot more effort in order to do that kind of drilling as opposed to, well, what we consider conventional, I guess, at this point.
Correct. Well, my question to these people out there, and I know the answer, but why was the Keystone XL pipeline shut down?
That's where we start getting into the oil sands that I kind of mentioned there as well. But honestly, yeah, that can be definitely and definitively, and I'm not even just speculating on this, these were statements that came out of the Biden administration about some of those, environmental and climate change goals. Whether or not that was advisable, I know that there was quite a lot of rhetoric coming around that particular pipeline. We've talked mostly about it from, the right-wing perspective on those kind of things, but on the left wing, it was a lot of, this is one of the tipping points we can see, this will cause so much more damage, those kind of things. So I guess from that perspective and what the administration was being answerable to, I'm not surprised they did that, though I do wonder if they're kind of kicking themselves at this point.
Well, they don't care about the American people. I mean, even the Secretary of Transportation said it was, pothole Pete, that it was good. It was good to feel the price at the pump. But anyway, one more point. CNN and the Washington Examiner just revealed within the last 24 hours that as a result of this Durham investigation, that the FBI offered Christopher Steele $1 million to prove his dossier was legit.
Yep.
Yeah, and that was the one that they took to the FISA court in order to get their surveillance apparatus in place.
Yeah, I know that some of those issues that came along with it, and of course the specific Steele dossier that had some of the most sensational claims made within it, that I think a lot of people were more willing to believe, if they were inclined to want to believe things not favorable to the previous administration. I mean, I think just even by the releasing of it, the damage was done, and that was the main real point about it, whether it could be substantiated or not.
Well, Steele admitted in a British court when they deposed him that he couldn't prove that the dossier was in fact correct. He could not prove any part of it was valid. So take it for what it's worth, you people out there. Anyway, I turn the mic back over to you, Andrew. Have a good weekend.
You too as well. Thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
All right, we'll go ahead and take that next break. Now, coming out of this break, we got more calls in the line. We got more comments coming into that I will try to do justice to. And a lot of comments coming in there, including Bernadette Bandacole, Barbara Cordasco, Eric McNabb, Kathy Codry, Austin Redfern. Tell you what, I'll do the whole list and those dropping those likes and react after this break. Again, if you want to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update. The Catholic Diocese of El Paso and Hope Border Institute are teaming up to help migrants deported to Juarez under Title 42. Together, they're investing $100,000. That money will go to help migrants with health issues, emergency shelter, food, and hospitality. Meantime, the city of New York is setting new records for the number of people inside their homeless shelters. As part of that is due to migrants being bused from Texas, including here in El Paso. More than 62,000 people are now sleeping in New York City-run homeless shelters. That number shattered a pre-pandemic record, and it just continues to keep going up. New York City Mayor Eric Adams says migrants now make up 1 in 5 people in city shelters. That, coupled with sky-high rents and the end of the pandemic eviction moratorium, are also fueling this problem. The average shelter stay is now more than 500 days. I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound at the Patriot, a crash is off to the right now. A couple of vehicles blocking the right shoulder. Expect delays there. Slow traffic on the 10 westbound Hawkins to the Patriot. It's a 15-minute delay. There's a crash off to the right, an accident blocking the right shoulder. A couple of vehicles off to the right. I-10 eastbound at Reynolds on-ramp. I-10 eastbound slow from Trans Mountain to the Patriot, say an 11-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the CBS 4 Warren Weather Center, I'm forecaster Vanya Castillo. We are in for a beautiful day here in the borderlands, staying pretty dry and warm. We're looking at a high of 83 degrees here in El Paso, 80 in Las Cruces, but we are seeing some cooler temperatures heading our way, as well as some rain this weekend. We are going to be seeing that 70% chance for rain on Saturday. Sunday, also seeing some heavier rain making its way. We're also looking at a drop in temperatures by Sunday, getting even cooler by Monday.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. At Lowe's, every pro is an MVP to us. MVP's Pro Rewards members visit Lowe's now and earn bonus points on products and brands like DeWalt. Then redeem for Lowe's e-gift cards and more. Bonus points calculated before taxes and fees. After applicable discounts, if any. Subject to program terms. Visit Lowes.com/MVP bonus points for details. Now through 10/28.
At Affordable Dentures and Implants, that moment when we see a patient smile is everything to us. And we're proud to have helped millions of patients improve their smiles through affordable tooth replacement options. So whether it's a single tooth, full dentures, or dental implants, Affordable Dentures and Implants is here to help you. Go ahead and smile. Our new El Paso office, led by Dr. Kiso Uradiegu, is now open at 11917 Gatewood Boulevard West in Las Palmas Marketplace near Kohl's. To schedule a free new patient consultation, call 1-800-DENTURE or visit affordabledentures.com. That's 1-800-DENTURE or visit affordabledentures.com. Again, our new El Paso office is now open at 11917 Gatewood Boulevard West in Las Palmas Marketplace near Kohl's. Affordable Dentures and Implants. Go ahead and smile.
Go ahead and smile.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Your quality of life and your retirement are under attack because the Fed and the administration has chosen to fight the wrong war. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. So listen to The Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk, whichever way you're on there. You get to see me wave at you whenever I mention those pages, but also a lots of different points coming up here, including, let's see, Barbara Carrasco, Eric McNabb, Glenn Stewart, Kathy Codry, John Browse, I think I said already. Ion Graham, dropping those likes and reacts. Easiest way you can do that at this point in the show. Ion Graham, Alex Campos, Richard Genesee, Calvin Williams, Flaco Jimenez, James Holtz, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and I do believe it was Ida Basic Gardner, the first one there, though it tends to drop off in my view. You're still on the like there, don't worry. Just doesn't come as concisely for me, including a lot of comments coming in about merits of political positions here. Eric McNabb taking particular issue with at least something I said yesterday. He's not being specific, saying that I left him breathless and heartbroken by what I said. Interested to know what exactly that part was. I remember us having the conversation about you saying that I support terrorism, of which I definitely challenged you on, because in simple terms, you want me to be more vociferous on it? Absolutely. Hell no. Several other four-letter words I can't say, but taking physical and destructive aims in order to achieve political ends is by no means acceptable in any circumstance. I don't care whether it was January 6th. I don't care if it was during riots that we've seen over the past couple of years. All of those are wrong in their own way and measure and should be prosecuted not exactly the same way, but in the way that is appropriate for what happened there. So, interesting calls and comments coming there. We do have those phone lines open, by the way. Number to call there is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. I know we've had some spit of disconnects here. Nothing doing on our end. I'll have my hands up during the next call to prove it. But just if you have any issues, let me know. One question that did come up, someone posting link to a video of, what our news partners are reporting about over at KFOX 14, that a shooting closes the Stanton Street Bridge, and one was taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. And, of course, all southbound traffic on Stanton from Paisano is also closed now. So this is a developing story, so definitely avoid the area there. They've got a crews on the way to the scene, see if we can get any updates from them. I'd head out there myself, but we're on the radio here, so make sure to check back with us on that. Anyway, let's get back to those phone lines right now. We do have Marco over in Central with us right now. Marco, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. How's it going?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
All right. I want to wish everybody a happy Friday. Hey, Andrew, I challenge you, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I promise you, I'm going to say a couple of things, and you will agree you do support terrorism. Because if you support our four founders, our forefathers, the people who found this country, many people do consider them terrorists. And those actions to give us liberty, I definitely do agree with those terrorists. But other than that, that's not why I called.
Fair
The
enough.
reason I called is this. I want to talk about forbidden sciences.
Okay.
Because I think people that are smart can't just allow the narrative of global warming to go forward. I think going forward myself, I'm going to try to make it a point every time we speak to at least bring some of this out. Here, let me give you some of this forbidden science. Ready? We'll start here. Am I right or am I wrong that NASA has drones all over Mars flying around?
Maybe not all over, but the way I think of it, Mars is essentially the only known planet inhabited only by robots.
Yeah, but there are drones flying in Mars, right?
Yeah.
They're helicopters. But
Right.
you need an atmosphere because there needs to be friction in order to generate lift. I'm putting that out there.
Sure.
What it is, whether it's oxygen, whether it's just carbon or helium, whatever it is, there is something there that generates lift for these drones.
Correct.
So there is an atmosphere there.
Mhm.
Okay? Let's just say, but that's forbidden science. Don't talk about that, conspiracy theorist. Here's another one. Massive methane lakes underneath the ocean. Huge that you can't even imagine. And life grows around those. Why? I mean, methane's bad. Carbon is bad. Because these are some of the sciences that they don't want us to talk about. They want us to be accepting the narrative. And so I don't look to climatologists anymore because they just work off this model theory. And so I'm looking for physicists who actually engage in the models and the discussion of hydrocarbons. of carbon. And again, like I always tell you, Andrew, ask somebody who says, I believe in global warming, I believe in it. Are we talking about carbon monoxide or are we talking about carbon dioxide? And I tell you, most of the time, carbon monoxide, it's bad. Of course it's bad, Demi, but that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is condensation. Hydrocarbons exist in everything. When you drive your car and you're burning fuel, you're burning a hydrocarbon. That's why you have water that comes out of your exhaust fumes. These are some of the, here's another one. Ready? The abiotic theory of natural renewable oil. Because here's what physicists, not climatologists, are saying. Physicists are saying that the natural lubricant between the mantle and the crust is most likely the oil that we grab from the ground. And so there's a natural process that's renewing itself. This is why we can reach oil in deep shales when we're doing fracking. But they don't want to talk about that because you know what happens? Here's what happens. Once we discover that, hey, oil is renewable, it's not just, made from dead leaves and dead dinosaurs and limited, then at that point, the oil isn't as expensive. As long as you can keep people believing the concepts of fossil fuel and limited resources, they can do what they're doing right now. But as soon as we start looking into these forbidden sciences, then we can start having a better discussion for humanity. This is why the elites want to control you. They want to control what you eat, how you live, where you live, what kind of cars you drive. And as long as we accept the sciences that they're giving us and don't challenge them, then we get what we deserve, because we shut our mouth when we had the opportunity to speak up and say, no, you're full of baloney. And here's the counter narrative to that. And other than that, again, I heard what happened on Stanton. Hey, real quick, police officers, the main police officer or whoever he is, I've often said, if they don't get anybody on Stanton Street because it gets hectic downtown when they're trying to get over there, and people are just cutting each other off. They don't allow for anybody to cross the streets. And I was like, one day somebody's just going to pull a gun and they're just going to have a falling down moment and they're going to start blasting people. And unfortunately, since you don't have people directing traffic down there, well, it's the Wild West. I don't know, unfortunately, somebody hopefully will have more tomorrows, but unfortunately, there's the end result. You have no control, so you have chaos.
I mean, yeah, hopefully, again, we'll try to get more information, see what we can get by the progression of this program here. And again, the Stanton Street Bridge, what we're referring to there, closed for now after there was a shooting there and at least one taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries, and more details hopefully coming out on this. But let me just say, whenever it comes to, disagreeing with settled science or whatever it's put that way, is that's at least the kind of beauty I see of the scientific method, is that inquiry is open to it, but also qualified inquiry is an important part of it. I'd never heard there be a suggestion that there wasn't an atmosphere on Mars. I mean, there certainly is. I mean, dust storms and things like that happen. So not sure if you're conflating like with what's going on with the moon or something like that, Earth's moon in this case I'm talking about. But yeah, I've always been aware that there was an atmosphere on Mars. If anyone's saying that there isn't, I would count them as incorrect to my current knowledge and understanding of that. And of course, I mean, there is a recognition that oil is naturally generated. I think the real contention comes down to in what the time frame is, because of course, naturally generated hydrocarbons are present in a whole lot of ways. Technically, you could consider, the leaves matted at the bottom of a forest as a early form of that. Or if you want to go a little bit further along, peat, not terrifically present in this country in a lot of ways, but of course in the British Isles, it was often burned as a source of fuel, essentially advanced stages of decomposition of plant and animal matter. And sure, we refer to it as fossil fuels. It doesn't mean it's actually made out of like T-Rex skulls being compacted or anything, but rather the algae that exists in the ocean falling to the ocean. I mean, when something dies in the ocean, where does it go? Nowhere to go but down, settles on the ocean floor. And so there may be other forms that haven't been fully explored yet And to be perfectly honest with you, there's not a whole lot of knowledge, to my understanding, about what exactly exists between like the mantle and the core. It's a lot of what we can observe, the whole theory of plate tectonics, those kind of things. So the idea of it being down there, the theory I've read more on that take a little bit more substance to, it's the idea that there's a whole lot more, that the vast majority of the water, the H2O that actually exists within this planetary sphere we exist in, would actually be trapped in the crust in different ways. So that's an interesting theory you put there. I'd like to see a lot more details and data on it. But again, I know there's some out there saying more specifically, Louis Pinato asked me, when am I going to visit Mars? No, thanks. We got a lot of robots doing that work out there for us. But I mean, being curious and wanting to see proof and data of things is important, but it's also important not to be then sea lioning of it. That's a phrase out there that exists when you don't accept any level of proof. It doesn't exist with your current ideas. And that's one other critical point that comes along with the entire scientific method of following the conclusions to where the evidence take you. So it's not, I have this idea and therefore I'm only going to find what fits it, but I have this idea, I'm going to find all of the relevant data on it. And if that is therefore challenged, I'm either going to accept or reject the hypothesis I put forward. And if you're only going to say, well, I don't like that piece because it's going to make me reject the hypothesis, I really like my hypothesis, that's at that point no longer science here. But I mean, remaining curious and understanding that there is discourse on these kind of things, well, that's kind of what we exist for. So appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there. We're going to go ahead and hit that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more of those calls on the line. So if you're there, stay there. If not, if you want to call in, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Multiple crashes on the I-10 westbound is slowing traffic this afternoon. A crash at Airway Boulevard off-ramp. An injury accident I-10 westbound at the Patriot. It's blocking the right shoulder. Expect delays. And I-10 westbound at Reynolds. An earlier crash is off to the right. Slow traffic on the 10 westbound from the Loop to the Patriot. That's a 10-minute delay. 7-minute delays on the I-10 eastbound Trans Mountain to the 54 Patriot. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies.
Dell Technologies provides growing businesses with tools to do incredible things because we believe there's an innovator in all of us. For advice on smart PCs powered by Intel V Pro that's built for business, call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
New on Curiosity Stream. Get ready for the best of the best with our 100 Days of Curiosity, featuring fan favorite titles like Light on Earth with Sir David Attenborough.
Join me on a journey like no other.
Stephen Hawking's favorite places.
It's a crazy world out there.
The History of Home with Nick Offerman.
Not my home, just homes. Other people's homes.
And many more. Don't miss 100 Days of Curiosity, happening right now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
For more than 20 years, the Window Depot has provided the best price and the biggest inventory on in-stock vinyl windows. And now, the Window Depot is more than a window store, offering homeowners and contractors a one-stop warehouse offering interior and exterior doors, granite quartz countertops, in-stock cabinetry, and skylights to finish your project. Their team of professionals will help with everything from free kitchen design to custom orders from leading manufacturers like Milgard and Geldwin. Order online or find a location near you at thewindowdepot.com.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know how important it is to be confident in all of life's close-up moments.
And bad breath can rob you of your confidence.
Yeah, it can. Whenever I'm rubbing elbows with celebrities or friends or just chilling at home, I got to make sure I have the confidence that comes with Smart Mouth mouthwash.
Smart Mouth is clinically proven to eliminate and prevent bad breath for 24 hours with just 2 rinses a day.
Get to your favorite retailer right now for that kind of better together confidence.
Find Smart Mouth at your favorite retailer or at smartmouth.com/radio.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday, brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
While the Soviet blockade of Western Germany was anything but pleasant, one man known as the Candy Bomber found a way to bring joy to children under communist rule. Be sure to catch this story on the next Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in there, and we'll keep delving into those, popping up some of them here, though, when we get real deep into some of the comments and the calls specifically, can lose track of them a little bit. But we do our level best, including Robert Gable commenting in there. Ended up getting caught up here at the station with the many things we got doing, but hope your event went well last night. In order to, we'll be talking about some of those events going on and some of those races, specifically Southern New Mexico. Not something we're turning a blind eye to. In fact, working on some things involving those races, some of the major ones that of course, we'll drill down as time allows, and a whole lot more comments there, including some comparing and contrasting, I guess. Robert Gable saying, attended a poll watcher class in New Mexico the other day. How many are aware that you do not need to show ID in New Mexico and you can actually register the day of voting? I mean, different state, different laws, but yeah, that is one of the differences here. And as much as that has been a focus on not having that in Texas, I guess I'm not surprised that others do have things like that available. And at least some comments, including over there from, among other things, Juan Carlos Escobar Lazo, JC, don't worry, I didn't forget about that nickname, just first reference kind of thing. If anyone hasn't noticed, I kind of like to argue, and I'm not saying that I'd like to argue to exclusion of anything else, but I don't remember if I've mentioned it in this context, but there was at least one point in my life which I specifically out loud said I want to be a lawyer because it's the best way I can think of to get paid to argue. And, well, it looks like I figured out another way to do it. So, yes, maybe I indulge in argument a little bit too much, but I'm kind of here for it as well. So, in any case, that's going to actually take us through that next hour break right now. So we got more comments on the line that, don't worry, I'm not necessarily looking to argue with everyone, but if you want to bring it, it will be brought in. In any case, more calls on the line, more comments, more of everything that we will keep getting into after the top of the hour news and this next break. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Line's full up at the moment, but keep that number down, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso, News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Multiple crashes on the I-10 westbound is slowing traffic this afternoon. A crash at Airway Boulevard off-ramp. An injury accident I-10 westbound at the Patriot. It's blocking the right shoulder. Expect delays. And I-10 westbound at Reynolds. An earlier crash is off to the right. Slow traffic on the 10 westbound from the Loop to the Patriot. That's a 10-minute delay. 7-minute delays on the I-10 eastbound Trans Mountain to the 54 Patriot. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Politicians have led us down the wrong path. Record inflation and cost of living. Unsafe border communities, a war on oil and gas jobs. Enough is enough. Catherine Parker will uphold our Texas values. A successful businesswoman and rancher, Catherine Parker will lower inflation and our cost of living. Catherine Parker will work to permanently lower your property taxes. Catherine Parker will stand up to the radicals who threaten our values and put our families in harm's way. Catherine Parker will secure our border communities and fully fund border security. Catherine Parker will stand with law enforcement and against those who want to defund our police, because our communities deserve to be safe. And Catherine Parker will defend the oil and gas jobs that power our communities. Truth, freedom, prosperity. Vote Catherine Parker for District 74 on November 8th. Political ad paid for by Catherine Parker Campaign.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The 15-year-old suspect in the mass shooting that killed 5 people in Raleigh, North Carolina on Thursday is going to be charged as an adult. Wake County District Attorney Lauren Freeman said petitions have been filed by her office to transfer the case to Superior Court. Stocks fell sharply to end a volatile week on Wall Street. Liz Warner reports.
The Consumer Price Index increased during the month of September, but that didn't stop the Dow Jones Industrial Average from rising by more than 900 points at times today. At the closing bell, the Dow gained 827 points, the S&P 500 rose 92 points, and the Nasdaq gained 232 points.
Liz Warner reporting. The Justice Department is asking a federal appeals court to vacate an order that appoints a special master to review documents taken from the FBI's search of former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. The DOJ is also looking to throw out Trump's legal challenge entirely. Russian military forces are targeting Ukrainian civilians in hundreds of missile strikes launched this past week. A senior U.S. military official said Russia is trying to retaliate after an explosion damaged a Crimean bridge. The official said Russia is deliberately targeting civilians and infrastructure like electricity and bridges in Ukraine. Mental health professionals are outraged that Amazon is selling what some describe as a suicide kit filled with lethal chemicals.
The body's natural inclination is not to experience pain. So individuals may even research what is going to be most quote unquote effective.
Dr. Rita Walker at the University of Houston says having these products available in just 2 days is problematic. Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling is remembering actor Robbie Coltrane after it was announced he passed away at the age of 72. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. It appears the 2 officers killed in Bristol, Connecticut Wednesday night were ambushed. Scott Pringle has more.
Sources tell NBC Connecticut there was a fake 911 call from a Bristol home reporting a disturbance Wednesday and that the suspect was waiting for police with a gun. Sergeant Dustin DeMonte and Officer Alex Hamsey were shot and killed, and the third officer is recovering from a bullet wound. Bristol Police Chief Brian Gould.
They answered a call to duty and they responded without hesitation. And that's what they did every night before that.
The suspect was found dead, but it's unclear if officers killed him or he took his own life.
Scott Pringle reporting. Breast cancers that emerge within 5 years of giving birth are more likely to spread and become deadly. That's according to a study from Oregon Health and Science University that looked at 2,700 people. It found that the risk of breast cancer spreading after birth was 50% higher compared with those who had not given birth. The findings show current clinical guidelines need to be updated for the higher risk. Tina Turner is getting the Barbie treatment. Trey Thomas has the details.
In honor of the 40th anniversary of What's Love Got to Do With It, Mattel announced they'll be creating an official Tina Turner Barbie doll. The doll will be part of the company's music series and features Turner in the iconic black mini dress, jean jacket, and tights that she wore in the music video for What's Love Got to Do With It.
BravoCon is returning to New York City this weekend. The event for superfans is running now through the 16th at the Javits Center. According to the network, there will be interactive experiences, live performances, along with Bravo stars. Fans will also be able to see Real Housewives of New Jersey favorite Teresa Giudice. BravoCon was postponed the past 2 years due to COVID. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Tune in this week for the conclusion of Red Pilled America's 10-part series on Richard Nixon. You won't want to miss it. The similarities between past and present are astonishing. Listen to Red Pilled America on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. That's Red Pilled America.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org. Ford.org.
Your engine may be trying to tell you something.
Hello? Yeah, under the hood. Mind opening up?
I need a favor. I've been driving you around for years, and I haven't asked for much. Some gas, a little oil, new tires once in a while. But look, I'm feeling a little run down and sluggish. I just don't have that same get up and go. And I'm afraid I might fail my emissions test. I warned you. Didn't you see my check engine light? So here's where you come in. Head to your favorite auto parts store and pick up a bottle of CRC, guaranteed to pass emission system cleaner. Psst, it's in a box. Just open up the bottle and glug, glug, glug right down the old gas tank. CRC, guaranteed to pass, uses real detergent additives to clean my whole system. I promise I'll feel so much better. And so will you, because guaranteed to pass actually does what it says, or CRC will double your money back. Hey, have I ever steered you wrong? CRC, guaranteed to pass emission system cleaner. Available at your favorite auto parts store.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
It's important to know what's going on, especially around the world.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you very much for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, and over on our various social media pages where the comments coming in hot and heavy. The Thunderdome has rarely thundered this much in the dome, but it's definitely going on if you want to wade in. Facebook's primarily the most primary one, I guess I should say, but you can also chime in on YouTube, Twitter. Not so much Twitter. Twitch, yes. Twitter, you can send your comments. I just can't put them up on screen that way. Though, of course, if you want to send us messages as well, at least one coming in from a little bit earlier, say it's from Sergio, asking, who cares what the price of gas is? It's the price on diesel that is the most of the price hikes on everything. Definitely is a point to be made there. And, I mean, sure, gas does make other things expensive, but diesel, DEF, the diesel exhaust fluid we talked about, which has a lot of stuff wrapped up with the urea shortage, weird as that is. I mean, there is a lot of transportation that comes from it, but gas just makes everything, I guess, personally more expensive. So less baked into the prices of things you're getting, more into the how much does it cost you to actually do and get them. So it's still indicative in its own right, and the just what it costs consumers to go around here. So, but take your point well in hand. Also, at least one more comment and a minor debate. I didn't intend to get started in the comments here. RJ asking, can I please use Broughton in a sentence, please? I believe I already did, but if you want to go with the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of it here, it actually doesn't have an example of it used in a sentence, but it does have definition of Broughton, the substandard past tense of bring, such as bring it on. Oh, it's already been brought in. I think that's a little bit of pop culture infecting my brain, but some others coming to not exactly my defense, but yeah, Kathy Coder saying say it's past tense, like forgotten, and more comments like that, including at least one other, and yeah, the past participle of bring. So, I mean, yeah, just making a point there and being flippant, I guess. But a lot of other commentary coming in, including Kathy Codery, Eric McNabb, RJ, Edgar Ortiz, Ion Grimm. Who else we got here? Robert Gable. Dropping those likes and reacts. That's one of the easier ways I can actually go through the list here. We do have, pull that up here, Amber, Ion Grimm, Alex Campos, Richard Janessi, Calvin Williams, Flaco Jimenez, James Holmes, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Ida Beza Gardner. Do appreciate that in its own order because it helps with those algorithmic things, meaning it shows up better what's going on online. But of course, those phone lines full up at the moment, but that number to chime in if you want to, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. One other comment I want to get to here, Edgar Ortiz saying I want to bring up a local issue. And here's about a lot of his business. The citizens of El Paso County are getting screwed by El Paso Electric. Seems like the price advantages by those who invested in solar panels have all but disappeared. This issue needs a lot more attention locally. I'll admit I had not done that. I was considering maybe more like a home install kind of thing at my own new house, but that's like down the list of many other things, including making sure all of the caulking on the tile is actually still good to go, as we've had some questions coming up here. That CAULK for anyone coming at me out there. But in any case, it would be interesting to know that. I know that it wasn't exactly tech. You want to take Texas, New Mexico comparisons here. It's a lot more advantageous to go for solar panels in New Mexico, but curious to know if you would expand on that a little bit. We're talking about actual like incentives giving for it, or if there are any federal ones, because that could, of course, affect here. Texas, of course, not having been as much on the personal level. And I mean, there's some things that are a little bit counterintuitive, even for me, as I'm considering the possibility, not anyway near going to be a whole hog with it, but who knows? And RJ agreeing that, yeah, substandard use of bring makes a lot of sense. A lot more comments coming in, and we'll get to more of those here. And let me just say that thinking that anyone that disagrees with you politically, ecumenically, or on logic is therefore wrong and evil, you're probably going to have a bad time around here unless you can totally back up your point here. And let me just say that holding up like names and giving people labels and holding up like a talisman, like it's supposed to be the cross that burns the vampire, or however kind of analogy you want to go with it, unless you can like really back it up, show your work, so to speak, or those kind of things, you're probably going to have a further bad time. Let's get to those phone calls again. The number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We have Barbara on the west side here with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
We were speaking about the January 6th committee yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and I mentioned the whistleblower. Well, his name is Eric Hoare. He's a top intelligence analyst for the Capitol Police. He's had 20 years of intelligence experience as a professional. He's been a supervisor, non-commissioned officer in charge of intelligence operations, and he's been a senior intelligence sergeant in the Army. So he's got plenty of experience. On January the 9th, 3 days after the riot, he sent a letter to his supervisors. And in that letter, he states that they had been communicating with the Capitol Police and others for 4 weeks, not FOUR, but 4 weeks prior to the riot, telling them that right-wing rioters planned to storm the Capitol. And he named the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys as two of those groups. As a matter of fact, one of the Oath Keepers, I remember reading, he himself went to the FBI and told him he had overheard a conversation of what was going to happen. Well, Hoare, H-O-A-R is his name, was outraged with the intelligence community, with the Capitol Police. And he said that he felt that the intelligence had been trumped and had been outweighed by political decisions. He said that was just unacceptable. So he asked the Capitol Police to conduct a nonpartisan investigation to identify their failures on January the 6th to avoid future failures, he said.
Mm-hmm.
So he was concerned about what they themselves had done. Now, these are the types of individuals that I believe the January 6th committee should have been interviewing if they really want to get to the bottom of what happened. And then another individual they should be talking to is the Office of Inspector General, who stated that the Secret Service had deleted emails for January 5th and 6th, and when they asked for them, they told him that they had deleted them. And he brought that up to the DHS because they are the parent agency for the Secret Service. So these two indicators right here show that the committee had absolutely no desire to actually have a fair and balanced investigation. And lastly, today, Brandon Judd, the president of the Border Patrol, asked that Mayorkas be impeached because it turns out that Mayorkas has lied to the American people. That he knew when he went on television that the two agents on the horses had done absolutely nothing wrong. Apparently, the photographer had sent a text or letter to Mayorkas explaining to him that nothing had happened, that they weren't aiming at hitting the Haitians. And yet 2 hours later, Mayorkas went on national TV to condemn their actions. And of course, we all know that shortly after that, the horses were pulled out of Eagle Pass. And because of that, Brandon Judd is saying that it gave the upper hand to the Mexican cartels on their smuggling operations. So we have a head of the DHS who lied to the American people, and these Border Patrol agents have suffered because of his lies. And I agree with Brandon Judd. We shouldn't have. We get lied to every day, but now they have emails proving that this gentleman lied, and he just needs to be impeached amongst many others, in my opinion. Now I wanted to go ahead and make one last comment to the gentleman who called yesterday to be respectful of others. And I want to tell him he's correct. And I did go long yesterday. It was not my intention to take as much time as I did, but I did. That's the past. And so I'm cutting it short. And I will in the future try and keep my sermons shorter. How's that? And just do the facts and no commentary.
I mean,
so that's what I want.
For Fridays, I call this airstrike on myself. I'll be honest with you, but I mean, I understand that maybe wanting to like really hit the point, things can get lost in the milieu if you tend to go on further and expound further on it. But just some of the commentary coming on here. Okay, let's just say that if you disagree with the analysis on here, honestly, I've been calling for a minute now for there to be a full investigation into January 6th in a variety of ways, because there were undeniable security failings that happened as a part of this, even outside of any of the political implications. And to say that those need to be not worried about or connecting it to anything else, like have Eric McNabb about this being election fraud lies, again, that's not a connection I'm making here, because the fact that anyone, and I do mean anyone, could approach the Capitol building and break out a window with a 2x4, and that could be even physically possible, much less allowed, is baffling to me. So this is not to say this is a replacement of or supersedes any of the other considerations that come along with it, but to call that promoting election fraud, and yes, I have watched the hearings. Maybe I haven't watched them slavishly or as exhaustively as you seem to want to like me to, but referring there to comment, not you, Barbara. But, I mean, seriously, the fact that none of this has been a part of these investigations, or at least the hearings, you know what, fine. I'm fine with it not being part of the hearings. If there's not an investigation into it, I'm going to be very disappointed in a variety of ways.
Well, I hope the Republicans do those investigations, and hopefully it's bipartisan.
Fair enough here. Well, thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. No, you too. Bye-bye. And again, yes, I have watched the hearings. I mean, I don't know if you just want to say a point enough times here, responding to a commenter, not Barbara there, that it'll be true, but that's also not how this works here. Anyway, get to at least one more call before we hit that next break. And watching curated clips. You've also made some claims that I have getting my information from Fox News or Alex Jones, and I get the power that often comes from trying to connect someone that you disagree with ultimate evils or those kind of ideas. If you want to go with those kind of logical fallacies, you're kind of doing like an inverse appeal to a higher power or appeal to authority, saying, well, we all agree that these things are bad, right? If you're anything like them, you're bad too. You're probably going to get some pushback on even some of those sources here, but also more specifically, I don't look at those. Alex Jones, Fox News, etc., or MSNBC or CNN. I tend to do a lot more research and try to find original sources, because oftentimes, I mean, sure, there are some things, particularly from the shows themselves, that like CNN and others do, but they're often citing from other local sources. Newswires tend to do that, so I tend to find like those local sources straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Doesn't always work that way, but in any case, watching the committee hearings from beginning to end, that's all we would be doing here on this. And besides, we're a local talk show. I don't know how much more vociferously I can say that, but in any case, let's go back to the phone lines here. We have Frankie and Messia on the line with us here. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
You cannot be serious. It goes beyond the pale of normal human thinking intellect. This is monstrous. What is that definition? You keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting the same result. It is the definition of insanity. And what is this orange-tinted fat lard going? He just came out with a 14-page rant on his stupid little website, going on about the same thing, that the election was stolen from him. It's all fraud. It's all this rock and roll mush nonsense. When everybody else, all other quote normal thinking people said no. What kind of ignorance is this? Now, I want to ask you this. And I know we've got callers, your famous callers out here, and I want more of your 250,000 listener callers to call. Well, whatever happened to Terrible Tony? Wasn't he our local psychiatrist? I ask you that. Isn't he our local psychiatrist?
I think he never claimed medical training in those ways, but I mean, we have people that call in, some with some frequency, some with less. I do believe he's still out there on the audience.
Well, I haven't heard from him for the longest time. I don't know. Maybe he got assigned to an institution. He went off the deep end. Who knows? But I would love to hear from your local listening audience in the entire Southwest Florida region. What's their thought process? From a guy that goes out and keeps saying the same thing over and over and over again, has been proven 14 different ways to Sunday. That is a bunch of bogus doo-doo. What kind of stupid nonsense is that? That's my opening comment.
All right, fair enough. I guess I wasn't referring to the statement I think we were talking about at the beginning anyway, from the former president. I guess none of it particularly surprised me, though everything, and I do mean just about everything that has come out from the office of the former president, that whole thing that got established, has been primarily fundraising focused. It's like that's the subtext I take from it, because, I mean, outside of being an active candidate in which that may or may not happen, that's still, I'm going to call a cloudy crystal ball moment, even though I know there's a lot of conversation about what will or will not happen. At the very least, the thing we do know that has been said, that there will be no announcements on a campaign until after the midterms, though that has been what has been claimed by the former president. Whether or not that actually bears out, given the fact that, again, he has a predilection for wanting to do sensational and attention-grabbing things, I'm not holding my breath on that either. Point is that most of the things, including this statement, can be thought of as serving a fundraising purpose. That's the way I tend to think of them anyway, because if you are saying that there is a problem, you, of course, often have to be asked to propose a solution, and the solution often be in these cases, and frankly, why the National Republican Party has continued the embrace here, is because of the usefulness of a fundraising tool of these narratives, and, of course, the statements coming out from the former president, because ultimately what gets suggested at these points in times is and therefore donate now. I mean, the amount of texts I get that way, I know I've talked about the O'Rourke campaign texts I get and the fundraising messages that come with them, but I get a lot of them, and they've often come this way too, including specifically that and things along the lines of, I haven't seen it specifically this time, but like, have you seen the latest statement from, say, the former president? Make sure to donate now to support us in enter next campaign or contest here. So that's why I guess I'm not too surprised, and why it still very much fits that narrative that I've been kind of focusing on with that.
Okay, I get that. But you know what? This pervasive aspect of crazy political sickness, Andrew, and I think the majority of your very somewhat intelligent people, I know there's a lot of poorly educated people that listen to you, but the normal thinking people in the Southwest Florida region have got to realize that you cannot continue to have a working democracy if you got so many stupid, sick people. And by the way, hey, Ben, don't forget what Rex said. And have a good weekend, Andrew.
No, you too. Thanks for the point on the call. Do appreciate it.
All right.
All right. And with that, we got to take that next break now. Coming out of this break, we will get further into the points, further into the commentary, further into just about everything that we do here. And a lot about the campaigns and stuff like that, too. So we'll dive into more on that and more on the details we're talking about here after this break. Again, that number to get on the line if you want to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Crashes on the I-10 westbound at Airway Boulevard exit and westbound at Reynolds on the 10, causing slowing. I-10 westbound from the Loop to the 54 Patriot, 10-minute delays. Border Highway eastbound between Padres and Zaragoza, heavy congestion, stop-and-go traffic. The Zaragoza Road exit is blocked. And a crash reported George Dieter northbound at Gateway West. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
News Radio 690, KTSM, and Scott Heating and Cooling want to provide a local veteran with a heating and cooling system upgrade. Tell us about a deserving veteran you know who would benefit from a free new refrigerated AC unit. Who are they? How have they positively impacted you, their families, and the community? Nominate a veteran you know today at ktsmradio.com.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
The UN just demanded all central banks to stop rate hikes, and now any recession is expected to be short and sharp. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. Listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello?
Mike, this is Norma Jean at Sergio Lewis Body Shop near the airport. Have you seen Sergio?
I'm expecting him in a few minutes to cut a new commercial.
I'm really worried about him, Mike. He really believes he's a poet. It's gone to his head.
There's plenty of room up there. Anyways, his poetry isn't that bad.
Will you please have him call the shop?
Sure, Norma.
That's Norma Jean, Mike. Gotta go.
Yee, she's feisty. Hey, Sergio, there you are.
Hey, Mike, I have this great new poem. Check this out, man. Sometimes even our darkest moments are enlightening. Hey, what's so funny, man?
Nothing, Sergio, really. By the way, Norma Jean called.
Really? What did she want?
Oh, she was just telling me what a big fan she is of your poetry, Sergio. Sergio Lewis Body Shop at 3800 Admiral near the airport, where it's the customer's choice, not the insurance company's, and there's a lifetime warranty on all collision repair. 593-0191.
Ask Sherwin-Williams during the 4-day super sale, October 14th through the 17th, and get 40% off paints and stains with prices starting at $26.69. That means 40% off our most popular color family, blue. Psychologists have found it to be soothing and relaxing, which makes it especially great for bedrooms and bathrooms. And of course, 40% off all of our other colors. Shop the sale online or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Here's a message just for the attorneys out there. So you passed the bar, joined a firm, or even built your own. Now are you finding out that you're doing more administration than actual law practice? Lexicon can help. Lexicon is a legal technology provider with over a decade of experience streamlining administrative tasks like timekeeping, billing, and more, so you can focus on maximizing billable hours and increasing client satisfaction. Call 855-4-LEXICON or visit lexiconservices.com/go to learn more.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. And a lot of commentary coming in there, including, all right, the last time I'm going to address this one for now because I feel like I'm just beating a dead horse at this point here. Where we got it here. Eric McNabb is claiming that I am pushing right-wing talking points, lol, and denigrating the hearings with such passion. I haven't even seen them. Yes, I have seen them. I've both watched them and seen analysis of them. Gathered news in a lot of ways. I also haven't been present for any of the State of the Union speeches, but we still talk about those. And talking about my relationship with the Sinclair Broadcasting Group. I know that you think anyone that associated with organizations you disagree with are shills, comment, etc. But again, if you're really going to come after that on this show for anyone doing like local broadcast journalism and those kind of things and connecting them with these huge, big conspiracy ideas, that's not going to work out for you that well as well. But others commenting and chiming in, leaving their 2 cents. Sergio Faz, Amber, Ion Graham, Alex Campos, Richard Janessi, Calvin Williams, Flaco Jimenez, James Holmes, Monica Cervantes, at least one other here. Again, does not keep showing me the whole list, which is annoying to me. Well, we got too many people chiming in, which is a good thing, I guess. Robbie Flores, Ida Beza Gardner, as well as Louis Pinato. We'll keep chiming in and talking about those. But again, back to those phone lines now. The number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have John over in Central on the line with us here right now. John, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Andrew.
Hmm?
I have a question, and then I like to read my Friday afternoon poem.
Okay,
It's a
briefly
good
if you
one.
can. All right.
It's a good one, this one. Okay. First of all, did I hear correctly at the beginning of the program somebody called you a terrorist? Is that correct?
So that's coming out of yesterday, and commentary about how I'm supporting terrorism, which again, just to make perfectly clear, particularly if anyone tries to clip this out and try to remove the context, which is always important. No, I don't support terrorism, finding it to be very bad. And also to someone else trying to say that, well, really, aren't there some of the people that founded this country considered terrorists? I would draw a very big distinction, forgot to make this, so thank you for bringing that up, between terrorism and, revolution and trying to, change political systems that are, oppressive or fighting over them, because I wouldn't call anyone say in the French Resistance having been terrorists, even though those in power and those rights definitely would have probably called them as that. I mean, there's the whole phrase of, someone's terrorist is another one's freedom fighter, which is fraught with equivocation, but yes, I still reject terrorism as a legitimate goal.
Okay, well, I've been listening to your program for several months now. I find your program fair and balanced. That's what I hear. So you're doing fine, I'm sure.
Well, thank you.
Okay, this is I title this poem "The January 6th Committee." There are some dolts in Washington, D.C. that formed a committee. Instead of doing the people's work, they do their obscenity. For you see, whenever the mention of the name Trump, they go into a frenzy and can't tell their head from their rump. Full of envy and hate, they wish for Trump to be behind bars. The right-thinking folks know this is likely, as there being little green men from Mars. There are 9 against 1. To them, the odds are just right. Boy, oh boy, they are in for a fright. A member of the bunch goes by the name of Lizzie. When they started this witch hunt, they thought it would be easy. To their dismay, when the last meeting ended, they were left queasy. For you see, 2 battle groups have formed. On the right are the educated, motivated, industrious, patriotic citizens. On the left are the intolerant, non-productive, whining, cheating, low information voters. Which group will prevail? On November 8th, 2022, the left will wail. On that night, Trump will lead his patriots into the people's house and rid the bunch led by Nancy the Louse. Okay. I hope everybody enjoys that one and have a good weekend. Bye.
Well, thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it here. So tell you what, let's go ahead and take that next break right now, get back on track with these breaks and get to that for more of the comments and more of the calls coming after this. And so just a lot of commentary coming in on some of these things here. At least one comment that I wanted to make sure we got to here quickly was let me see here about, I have lost it in the milieu, but let's just say that the conversation about talking with your doctor about medical issues. I mean, if you've got the time, training, and expertise, having spent more than just internet researching, but actual training when it comes to medical issues, feel free to comment on these things. But otherwise, also, if you don't feel like you have a doctor that you can have conversations with about what's important to you and treatment options, you need to find a new doctor. And yeah, I still stand by that in case there was any comment or question along those lines here. But let's go ahead and take that break. Coming out of this break, getting to more of the points, more of the policies that we talk about, but really just more of y'all's calls that we'll get to here. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, that number to call if you want to get on the line, 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hey everyone, this is Robert Olgain with your KFOX 14 News Update. President Biden has appointed former El Paso DA Jaime Esparza to be the top federal prosecutor for the Western District of Texas. Esparza served as El Paso's DA from 1993 to 2020. The U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Texas is a position that oversees federal prosecutions in a region from Austin and San Antonio to El Paso. As federal prosecutor, Esparza would lead the federal prosecution against the accused Walmart shooter Patrick Crusius. Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez says that President Biden's new plan to address the soaring number of Venezuelan migrants at the border won't work. Under the plan announced Wednesday, the Biden administration says it'll start expelling Venezuelans who cross the southern border illegally, while also creating a narrow legal pathway for some who can qualify. Gonzalez represents parts of Far East El Paso County. He says Venezuelan migrants who don't qualify for asylum should be returned to their home country, not simply to Mexico. But Democratic Congresswoman Veronica Escobar says that plan would never work because the U.S. does not have diplomatic relations with Venezuela, which would make repatriation flights impossible. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olgain.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound is the slow place to be this afternoon due to a couple of crashes, including I-10 westbound at the Patriot. 2 vehicles in the right lane blocking the right side, stay to the left. I-10 westbound at Reynolds. An earlier crash there involving multiple vehicles. Slow traffic in general from the Loop to the 54 Patriot. It's a 10-minute delay. And an accident reported Pebble Hills eastbound at George Dieter. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the CBS 4 Warren Weather Center, I'm forecaster Vanya Castillo. We are in for a beautiful day here in the borderlands, staying pretty dry and warm. We're looking at a high of 83 degrees here in El Paso, 80 in Las Cruces, but we are seeing some cooler temperatures heading our way, as well as some rain this weekend. We are going to be seeing that 70% chance for rain on Saturday. Sunday, also seeing some heavier rain making its way. We're also looking at a drop in temperatures by Sunday, getting even cooler by Monday.
This report is sponsored by Audible. This fall, find everything you love listening to on Audible. From memoirs and true crime to celebrities and sci-fi, Audible is the home of storytelling, audiobooks, podcasts, and originals. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com.
Politicians have led us down the wrong path. Record inflation and cost of living, unsafe border communities, a war on oil and gas jobs. Enough is enough. Catherine Parker will uphold our Texas values. A successful businesswoman and rancher, Catherine Parker will lower inflation and our cost of living. Catherine Parker will work to permanently lower your property taxes. Catherine Parker will stand up to the radicals who threaten our values and put our families in harm's way. Catherine Parker will secure our border communities and fully fund border security. Catherine Parker will stand with law enforcement and against those who want to defund our police, because our communities deserve to be safe. And Catherine Parker will defend the oil and gas jobs that power our communities. Truth, freedom, prosperity. Vote Catherine Parker for District 74 on November 8th. Political ad paid for by Catherine Parker Campaign.
While the Soviet blockade of Western Germany was anything but pleasant, one man known as the Candy Bomber found a way to bring joy to children under communist rule. Be sure to catch this story on the next Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in over on the very many different outlets we've got you, including on-air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. And a lot of comments coming in there. Again, just dropping those likes and reacts because I've lost all track of the comments at this point here, including, just so many points coming into there. That pops up that are more relevant on screen. More recent ones are Carlos Marquez, Sergio Fox, Amber, Ion Grimm, Alex Campos, Richard Janicki, Calvin Williams, Flaco Jimenez, and going with my secondary reference point over here. James Holmes, if I didn't say that already, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Ida Beza Gardner, and Louis Pinato. Appreciate that. That's with all the algorithmic things that come along with it. Let's go ahead and get back to those phone lines now. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, boy, that poem sucked, let me tell you. And for that guy to call those guys patriots shows you the delusional quality of these people's mind and reasoning. They're patriots. No, they're more like pendejo patriots. Now, as to all these complaints by your Trumper audience and or callers about, and legitimate, about the expenditures that the city has had to make in reference to these immigrants coming in seeking asylum. We are a poor city with very bad fiscal management in City Hall. Spending money on all kinds of money-losing projects. But I've got a suggestion how your callers and listeners who are Trumpers can help their community and maybe some of these immigrants. Why don't they write a group letter, get together and write a letter to Donald Trump, their Messiah, and ask him to pay the $600,000 that he owes the city? Now, to me, that is a lie. That is somebody who breaks their word, breaks the contract. And it seems to me, Andrew, you have a hard time calling Donald Trump a liar. Do you think he's a liar?
I mean, he is documented on the record in a lot of different ways of telling lies. But I mean, another phrase that comes to mind is about, how do you know a politician is lying? Their lips are moving.
So is he a liar?
I mean, I believe I just said yes, but what's the point you're trying to get at
Call him
here?
a liar. Say Donald Trump is a serial pathological liar, just like Ted Cruz, the real conservative, the real traditional Republican. Call him such.
I mean, again, given the whole thing we've been talking about labels here, try to deal with like the issues that people are discussing here and why we're more willing to talk about Ted Cruz, to be perfectly honest with you, given that he is still in office and having effects on here and some of these policies that we're talking about, including the immigration ones.
Yeah, well, Ted Cruz he's the, par excellent example of a craven politician. A guy who'll go suck up and kiss up to Donald Trump's rump after the guy said his wife was ugly, that is implicated, or that his father may have been involved in the assassination of Kennedy. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. The Washington Post has documented 30,000 lies that he has told. And yet his followers continue to follow a guy who is a serial pathological liar and a very sick man. He caused all kinds of violence in this country. He's still out there spreading his lie. Now, I watched all of the hearings. Did you, Andrew?
Okay, if we're going to be going around this bend again here, no, I did not watch them exclusively, exhaustively, or all of them, but yes, I definitely was paying attention to the outcomes of it, the major motions of it here, including looking at sources such as, being brought up here in the comments, the New York Times and all of that, as well as many other sources providing the analysis of it to then come to conclusions about what we talk about it here. So, sure, the progressions of these committees are important in their own right, and I've certainly encouraged everyone to pay attention to them, see what the outcomes are, see what the progression of them is. But I will still stand by my statement because I have not seen this, essentially the standard that I have been expecting reached yet in terms of an investigation. Because a lot of questions coming out of January 6th, of course, are of the organizational nature. Was someone, truly plotting to try to overthrow the U.S. government? Those questions came out the day of. And I know that has been unextent what of some of the comments of all the actual committee have been, but actual investigation resulting in criminal charges was not a part of these proceedings. It may result from it, and again, I think we have that standing bet about a lunch bet of any actual charges stemming out of the January 6th committees will come from that, which I do still stand by because I will be kind of surprised if it does. Because again, my understanding, any of the remedies about particularly dereliction of duty, failure to uphold the oath of office, those kind of things are not criminal penalties, but rather those that would then come from removal from office, which of course, again, is a moot point at this point. So if it wanted to come with further consequences, such as inability to hold office, which has been more than a little bit intimated, don't know if that's actually within the purview of Congress anyway. I know that there's been at least one case that regionally, specifically for a Doña Ana County commissioner that was actually, sorry, not Doña Ana County, but a regional New Mexico commissioner. Don't want to get anyone in trouble that I did not intend to, of not being able to hold office anymore. Whether or not that's actually possible to be done even at this level or at the federal level is a question that remains a question mark in my mind. So if you like the proceedings of the January 6th committee, I think that the major purpose, and this as much has been analyzed and admitted to by many other outlets, was the court of public opinion, and therefore influencing and swaying the future votes was the primary purpose of it here. I think for a lot of those, particularly in the committee, any actual charges or investigations coming out after this would be essentially icing for the cake on them. But I think that was the primary point here. But I think we've worn that saw down a bit on the hearings today, so we're going to go ahead and move on there. So thank you for the point in the call and what it's worth here. Trying to get to a couple more calls before we end the program here. Let's go with Jerry in the northwest side of town with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call. I understand that Jaime Esparza is going to take over the trial from the August 3rd murderer in El Paso. I'm not going to say his name because that's what they want. The murderers want, is they want to become famous. And some people out there like Eric don't understand that. So you don't say their name, or I don't say their name, because I don't want to honor them, give them any honor at all. So anyway, is that correct?
So, not exactly as you're saying it. He's not replacing anyone, but he has been appointed or nominated by the Biden administration in order to then serve as essentially the lead federal attorney for the Western District of Texas. So he would be taking on, potentially, again, there's a few more steps here, but the trajectory would be for him to take on the federal part of the trial. There was always going to be the federal and the state part of the trial. It does look like the federal part will take precedence in terms of scheduling and actual progression, since there's been a lot of bogging down on the state level that the district attorney's office would be dealing with. But there's not, just want to make it clear, not a replacement of the district attorney in this case. There's just the fact that the former district attorney has now been appointed to a relevant position involving other parts of this trial.
Okay. So Rosales, Johanna Rosales, is she still going to be involved in this case?
At the moment, yes. Of course, there are proceedings that are happening, including some removal petitions and things like that. So all other things being equal and things that the status quo, if they are, yes, she'll still be involved on the state level of it. Jaime Esparza, if his process goes through to become the federal prosecutor, would be involved in the federal side of the trial.
Okay, so how is that going to happen when it's reported by NPR that Rogelio Rodriguez was working for her, basically, and they were harassing one of the families of a victim from that murder case?
So that's more involved within the state level. And again, the district attorney's office. There has been a hearing that has now been postponed again, to my understanding, involving essentially the gag order on the, again, state level part of the trial, the part that's been in San Medrano's court, Judge San Medrano. So that's where those complications come in. But so in terms of potential appointment or confirmation of Jaime Esparza, nothing to do with that part.
Okay. Well, has there been any petitions made to remove Rogelio Rodriguez? Because from what I read from the NPR article, was that he was the one that told that family that he had many snipers out there. Yeah. What does it take to get rid of Rogelio, the Judge Rodriguez?
So I'm not 100% on the removal process there, but I wouldn't be surprised if, well, let's just say there are cases that are moving forward that will then try to be involving this. I mean, there are investigations and court proceedings. So we'll see, though I haven't heard of anything being filed or any motions or movement that way at this point. I can say that with certainty.
Okay. Would we have to go through the state, like the state, the Attorney General? Do we have to go through that to bring this about?
Yeah, that's honestly a good question. Again, I've not heard of any efforts that way, so I'm not even sure where they would originate from at this point. So if it does come up, we'll be sure to talk about it further.
Okay. Well, I was told that not told. I was read that Rogelio was the one that said that he had many snipers when it came to this family, not working with them to remove the judge that is currently overseeing the project. So, one more thing before we hang up. Rex said, "Roof, roof, roof," and I will translate for you. That means let's go, Brandon.
All right.
Have a good day. You have a good day, Andrew.
You too. Thanks for the point of the call. Have a good one there as well. Let's squeeze in one more quick call before we hit that next break. Then we do have Stephen on the east side with us right now. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. First, I want to just address what Marco was saying earlier. I think what maybe he was confusing is the atmosphere on Mars is very thin. So there's something called atmospheric pressure. So the planet will have heat that's retained on it based more on the atmospheric pressure than the composition of the atmosphere. For example, Venus and Mars are both very, very high in carbon dioxide. Venus is much, much hotter because the atmospheric pressure is high, and Mars is much, much cooler because the atmospheric pressure is low. That doesn't mean you can't design drones to fly in it. It's just you have to specially design them for that. Yeah.
That's more or less my understanding as well. Whereas, Venus is hot enough to melt lead because of its atmospheric pressure.
That's right. When it comes to this bridge where people were lined up and there's maybe people kind of trying to squeeze in and get over there. I have been over there and trying to get over that, and it is quite a mess. And then there are people, I think, looking for trouble. I remember one time I was there and it was my turn to kind of cross the street, and this guy in the big truck pulled right in front of me and another person and just kind of stared us down for no reason, kind of expecting us to react and honk. And we just kind of sat there and waited him out, and he just left. But it's kind of strange. I think some people are maybe down there looking for trouble. So I do agree that a police presence would probably be welcome and helpful over there.
No, fair enough here. And again, I know that our news partners from KFOX 14 have some coverage going on, and reporters on the scene now at, again, the Stanton Street Bridge. Shooting did happen there earlier. At least one taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries, and it is remaining closed by police until further notice. So definitely avoid that area there in, south central El Paso as much as possible. Anyone there over on out on the roads at this moment.
Yeah, and then my final thought is, I think I mentioned earlier, warned you about people like Eric McNabb and this Raul guy. I mean, they claim to be atheists and they seem to be, secular, but they are just as religious as any cultist you'll ever find. If you are against their doctrine or contradict their narrative in any way, then you're deemed a heretic, and then they will seek to destroy you. And they've got these blinders on about, the reality, like, oh, Donald Trump's a liar, he lies all the time. Like Donald Trump will say, oh, I had the biggest crowd size. And then they'll say, oh, technically it wasn't the biggest crowd size, therefore you're a liar. Meanwhile, their politicians, Obama, Biden, are constantly lying too, but lying about things that are actually going to affect your daily lives. With healthcare, you're going to be able to keep your doctor, or with the fossil fuels and everything. Even just this week, we found out that Biden called the Saudis, tried to force them to keep the production up to try to keep prices temporarily low for oil and gas just until after the election. And now they're going to, Biden administration is going to punish the Saudis for not going along with what they wanted them to do with oil production. These people are liars about things that are actually going to affect your lives, as opposed to the kinds of lies that Donald Trump typically told. So, like you said, they're politicians. They don't tell the truth. But people like McNabb and Raul, they've got huge blinders on. They don't see anything that goes outside their narrative. So that's how they are, and we can expect a lot more of them because a lot of those types of people are educating our children now. So good luck with that.
I'll agree with that last part. Good luck with it, because there's only going to ignore reality for so long here. But do appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there. All right. And I think we'll have to go ahead and take that next break right now, because we are super out of time. So we'll come back, close out the show, tell you what we got coming up for you. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is slow this afternoon from the Loop to the Patriot with 11-minute delays. I-10 westbound at the 54 Patriot exit. A crash there is slowing traffic. An earlier accident, I-10 westbound at Reynolds. All vehicles are off to the right. An injury accident on Alameda Avenue south of Midway at Rosedale. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Tune in this week for the conclusion of Red Pilled America's 10-part series on Richard Nixon. You won't want to miss it. The similarities between past and present are astonishing. Listen to Red Pilled America on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. That's Red Pilled America.
You wash your hands, you brush your teeth, but what about the nose? How do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, flushing out allergens, mucus, and germs. And it's why cleaning your nose, the body's air filter, is the next evolution in daily personal hygiene. People try Navage for lots of reasons: sinusitis, colds, allergies, snoring, things that make it hard to breathe through your nose. But over time, they find that cleaning their nose makes them feel better, a lot better. Over 3 million Navage users have written more than 100,000 reviews, averaging 4.7 stars, saying, "Best product I've ever used," and "Amazing, I love my Navage." Navage helps you breathe better, sleep deeper, and snore less, but the biggest payoff is improved health. Navage is good personal hygiene and can help you stay healthier. At Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Target, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
That is going to do it for us for today. Super out of time for this program, but of course we'll be back next week, as we are every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. to take on the many issues. And let me just put it this way. If there's a kind of core guiding concept here, is that, A, we need to discuss these issues, but if orthodoxy is your primary concern, making sure people are in line with you, and I don't really care which side of the aisle that comes from, or any standpoint, you're going to have a bad time here, because looking at the reality of the situations, what's actually going on, how it actually impacts us here in the borderland are the major focuses that we have. So anyone demanding coverage of other things or other problems or other of their proclivities, it's not going to work out for you, because we need to talk about what affects us here in the borderland. And there may be a lot of concepts here, but try to focus on the most important ones, particularly local news and other issues coming up each and every day, and we'll keep doing that every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So a couple things I want to mention to you. Of course, tune into the El Paso History Radio Show this weekend, Saturday, 10 to noon on News Radio 690 KTSM. We're talking about the history of the 1st Cavalry Division on Fort Bliss. And no, not misspelling or misnaming the 1st Armored Division, the 1st Cavalry Division, and kind of the history of cavalry and horse-mounted combat in this region as a whole. So stay tuned for that. And I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. Seriously, these conversations, as contentious as they may get, I'm a glutton for punishment, and it gives me life. And we'll keep doing it every weekday, 4 to 6 p.m. So everyone who did do so, thank you very much. We'll, of course, see you next week. But in the meantime, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening. We'll see you all next week.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is slow this afternoon from the Loop to the Patriot with 11-minute delays. I-10 westbound at the 54 Patriot exit. A crash there is slowing traffic. An earlier accident, I-10 westbound at Reynolds. All vehicles are off to the right. An injury accident on Alameda Avenue south of Midway at Rosedale. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hi, guys. It's Andrew with Northbrook Medical Clinic. Are you struggling with erectile dysfunction and sick of the pills? Well, we now have a major medical breakthrough you are going to want to hear about. The wave technology at Northbrook Medical uses gentle pressure waves to repair and open up blood vessels. There are 60 clinical studies, including from Cambridge, showing our technology treats the root cause problem of ED without any pills. If you're ready to put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and regain